All right. Hi, guys. All you beautiful people. Hi. I didn't know we would be celebrating this Saturday night with 180 of my closest friends. So I'm excited to be here and thank you for the invitation. I am Amy Spain Duncan. My sobriety date is March 6th of 2010. Monday, I will have 13 years of continuous sobriety with no weekends off, and that blows my mind. I tell you what, I've just been walking around between a state of disbelief and like tears, just tears. Because I didn't know that somebody like me could stay sober 13 days. Much less 13 years, but that's what happens, right? We stay sober and we grow old here in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I love it. I am sponsored by a woman who is sponsored by a woman who is sponsored. I sponsor women who sponsor women who sponsor women who sponsor women. I love that. I'm a kind of a stop the bleeding sponsor. So if I sponsor you, we're going through those steps real fast, right? That's the solution. I need that. I don't have time to waste. The book says I'm on a life and death errand. So we get through the step work and then you get involved in service right away, because the three legacies, if I leave any part of that out, I'm on shaky ground, right? So that's what I do. I'm a three legacy AA member. I have a home group, and they know that I'm a member of that home group. I have a Zoom home group that was kind of a leftover from COVID, but all of a sudden I'm in a group with people from South Africa and all over the United States. And I've been with you 2 years on Zoom, so it's like we didn't want to give that up. I wanted to keep meeting and being with my friends, and so I have a Zoom home group, and I have a service position in my home group, and I do an H&I commitment here locally in my town. And I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I love this design for living that works in fair weather or foul. It's to me the greatest show on earth. And we got a front row seat, but you got to show up to see the show. But I love it. I love what we do here, and I love how my life has changed. But the deal is, I got to tell you how I got here, right? So to qualify, um, I am I am textbook alcoholic. I am identified in the doctor's opinion. I have a physical allergy. I have a mental obsession. I develop a phenomenon of craving, and when I start drinking, I cannot drink safely or predictably, and that has been my story from the first drink. Like, I didn't have a honeymoon period. I didn't have a period of social drinking or controlled drinking. Like, I must have needed the drink before I ever got it, because once I got it, it was on. Like, from the beginning, I fell in love with that feeling, the effect produced, man. And it all the things we hear, our response to alcohol as alcoholics, that's what happened to me. The magic happened, man. I was no longer too skinny, and my teeth weren't too crooked, and I didn't miss my dad as much, you know and I didn't care that I was different than those other kids I went to school with as much, and all that pain and all that spirituality and all those uh, uh, sakaras, all those blockages, all those things, that pain that I carried, it was all gone when I drank. And I knew that I was going to drink again. And my motto, I wanted to drink as much as I could, as fast as I could, as often as I could. And that was the goal, right? So, my dad suffered alcoholism. I was telling some of the guys before the meeting, he died in 2019. And I miss him terribly. Oh, I miss him. I missed him so bad the other night that I had physical pain in my chest. It's been I mean, we grieve and we lost, but this man, I missed him bad. It hurt. My chest hurt because I miss him so bad. And I was a daddy's girl from the time I was conceived, and my dad suffered alcoholism, You know, my dad died with 30 years sober in this program, but he didn't get sober till I was 18. And I was that kid, that sat on the step with my suitcase because he said he was coming. And everybody knew he wasn't coming but me, because I just continued to believe and hope and just love my dad. And so my mom, they divorced when I was about 7 or 8 years old. My mom remarried. I wasn't happy about that. And we moved out of town to a little country town out of the city. And this town this was so rural. They didn't even have sidewalks, like that. It was just country roads and houses that sat back in the woods. And that's where I was. And I didn't like it. And I went to a little grade school, and there were 8 kids in my graduating class, right? And none of their moms worked. My mom was worked. None of their parents were divorced. They didn't know what stepdad even meant. I got off the bus, and we would go home, me and my sister, and we had a couple hours before my parents got home from work, my mom and my stepdad. And that's called a latchkey kid, and they didn't know about that. They couldn't believe that nobody was waiting at home. When I got there, like, who's there with you? I'm like, we're there by ourselves. We watched Little House on the Prairie, and we unload the dishwasher, and we wait for my mom to come home. But I was different than these kids, and I didn't like it. I wanted to be back in the city, in the suburbs, in my cul-de-sac, and so I was angry. I was this angry 8-year-old, and I was mad at my mom because in my mind it was her fault. My mom would put us in the station wagon at night when she was still married to my dad, and she would drive us around looking for my dad, and be 1 in the morning or something. Me and my sister in the back of the station wagon. We'd drive by a place, and my mom would say, "Is your dad's motorcycle in the parking lot? Look for your dad's motorcycle," as we drive by these joints, And I was 7 years old. I didn't know. And the marquee would read Kitten House. And I think, well, who doesn't like kittens? Why is this woman so angry? I didn't understand what it was like to be married to an alcoholic. And I only cared about how it affected me. And the only thing I liked my dad. She was the only one fighting with him in the house. I wasn't fighting with him. And I was sad, and I was angry. And I was angry about the stepdad situation. I was angry about being moved to the country when I'm from the cul-de-sac, and I was angry about these kids, and I was angry about these nuns. I went to Catholic school, and the nuns at my old Catholic school were really nice, and the priest would sit down and eat lunch with you, and it was just seemed nice. And in this rural country town, they didn't even acknowledge Vatican II, and they were mean and they were strict. And I remember getting my first Holy Communion, and my dad showed up, and they said that when we got to the front, my mom and dad, when we would walk up for my first Holy Communion, they wanted my mom to cross her chest with the big arms like this, because she had remarried, and that made her an adulteress, and she wasn't going to be able to receive the sacrament. And they wanted her to publicly display, to the church, that she would not be receiving the sacrament. As mad as I was at my mom, I couldn't figure out how this junkie drunk that hadn't showed up in 2 years, my daddy, could walk to the front of this church and receive the sacrament. But my mom, who worked so hard and brought us to church every Sunday and cooked dinner every day at 6 and was paying for that Catholic education she was giving me, how her adultery, so I'm confused, and so my relationship with God begins to sever, because I don't want a God that it would do that to my mom. I'm mad at my mom a little bit, but you can't be mean to my mom, and instead of and see, in my childlike understanding, God, spirit, universal truth, higher power, and church were the same thing. That was the same thing. So if I rejected the church, then I'm rejecting God, because I didn't know there were so many ways to have a personal relationship with a power greater than yourself. I thought it was only through this way. So I'm real confused, and I'm real angry. And by junior high, somebody puts a drink in my hand, and man, I'm happy. None of that even matters anymore. And I found the solution. I quickly became a party girl. And by party girl, I mean I'm going to party. And we're going to party, and we're going to party big and loud, and nothing little, man, everything over the top. And that's the way I am. And the problem is sometimes when I get drunk, this anger shows up, and I'm violent. So drinking with me was like a crapshoot. You don't know if we're gonna have a good time or if I'm gonna go into a rage and tear up your house and slash your tires and bust the windows out. Like I'm a loud, crazy girl. And so that's kind of unnerving for folks, right? So I can only drink with people like us, right? Because normal people aren't gonna drink with me if I'm gonna flip the table and start a fire before the end of the night. And I'm strangely insane, and I'm doing awesome, and my behaviors are showing this, right? So my schoolwork, I was an honor student. I don't care about that anymore. I played trombone. I don't care about that anymore. I ran track. I don't care about that anymore. Like alcohol quickly became the priority. The only thing I care about is where we getting, how much we're getting, and when can we start drinking. And that becomes my obsession. So I have a mental obsession for alcohol, right? I have this physical allergy. Once I take a drink, there's not enough. There's not enough. I'm going to drink more. I'm going to drink more. I'm going to drink more. By definition, that makes me an alcoholic. But I don't know what's wrong with me, right? I'm bedeviled at an early age, as it tells about page 52 of our big book. That's me. I'm in little control of my emotional nature. I'm a little no use to anyone. And I'm just bumping through, like bumping into things and bouncing off, and bumping into things and bouncing off. And my poor mother is doing everything she can to stabilize an unstable child. I held my family hostage. I have a little sister. We couldn't have a family dinner where we talked about how was your day, or did you make the basketball team? No. Everything's, did you hear about Amy? The teachers called about Amy. That boy's mom called about Amy. The police have called about Amy. What are we going to do about Amy? I demand all the attention because my poor mother just is trying to get between me and an oncoming train, man. And they did everything they could, and they did everything right, but I didn't care. I was on a path. Our alcoholism is not a problem until it's a problem for me. Right? Everybody had problems with my drinking but me. And it was a long time before alcoholism would be my problem, before the booze would be my problem. Until it was my problem, it was always your problem. And if you had a problem with it, I'm going to hang out with somebody else. And that's how I lived my life. I changed high schools 4 times. We never moved. My stepdad wasn't in the military. I have to change high schools because I don't get along with you. And the only solution I have for that is to keep it moving. I'll come back when you're not mad. And I got to be honest with you here, because as a female, I think it's important. I would see beautiful women in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I think, well, they didn't do what I did. Let me tell you why I got left that all-girl Catholic high school, because I will sleep with your boyfriend. And girls are very sensitive about that. They don't like that. And so now I got to fist fight you on Monday morning, and I didn't even want your boyfriend. I don't even remember his name. Right? I don't even remember his name, because it doesn't matter to me. You're just something to use. You're just something to try to fill this void and make the emptiness go away, and that's how I use people, and that's how I move through people. I left that all-girl private school, they were like, we don't drink and we don't smoke and we don't kiss boys. And I was like, I don't either. I did all those things, but I want to fit in, right? So I'm living a double life, and it always gets found. We always get exposed as to who we are. And I was a crazy, troubled girl with a bad reputation. And that used to matter, that was something you didn't want. And that's what I had. And that's who I was. So I had to pretend it didn't matter. I had to pretend I didn't care. And I became this real Billy badass, and I put up these walls and these defenses that I didn't care, what you think of me and all that. And it isolated me from my peers and from potential friends. And it just drove me deeper into the bottle. And the bottle was it. It was a relief for this uncomfortable world. And I drank 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 as I drank. That's what I did. I drank. I drank. There was no particular time. I just drank. There was no particular booze. I just drank, anything would do. And at 19, I got pregnant and had my first daughter. And I thought, this is yeah, this will fix it. See, I'm going to be a mom, and she'll love me and I'll love her and we'll be okay. But I didn't quit drinking. I couldn't quit drinking. And it was how I dealt with everything. Stress, anxiety, depression, happy times, good times, whatever. I drank and I drank and I drank and I drank. And my mom stepped in and did a lot of raising of that little girl. And then I got a job at a bar. Oh, I couldn't. I even forged my birth certificate. In Kentucky, you have to be 20 in a day to serve booze. And I was only 19, but I couldn't wait to get in the bar. So back in the day, we used to be able to do things like that. Everything. You can't do it as like today, but back then you used to be able to, change things on birth, and make new copies and forge IDs. We were all Gen X. We had it all worked out. And I got a job at a bar, and man, I loved it. I think we should all work at bars. I love it. We used to smoke in the bars. It was smoky and the smell of spilled booze and bands playing loud. And this was my heaven. This was my utopia. And I was slinging drinks and making a lot of money. And I was 19 years old. And I turned 20 and they threw me a party because they thought I was turning 21. I'm just a liar, and I just want to be at the bar, and I just want to be where the action is and where the excitement is and where the chaos and the noise is so loud that it matches what's going on in here, man, because the noise in here is so loud. So loud, man. I started dating the bouncer because I like to fight and he likes to fight, and we'd get drunk and fight each other. I, did a 4-step, and I was, oh, he would hit me, and it was awful. And my sponsor said, didn't you say when you drank, you got violent and aggressive? I'm like, yeah, I did. She said, do you ever think he was defending himself? I had to get real honest, man. Yeah, probably, because I'll attack you. I'll climb you like a spider monkey, and I'm carrying a knife. You got to get me off you. But I always like to tell the victim side of the story. I don't like to tell the whole truth, But the truth is, I'm sure that man was defending himself, because I'm violent, I'm aggressive. I got pregnant by him, and he didn't want a baby, thank God, and he took off. He left, and I started dating his kid brother. He didn't like his brother. I didn't like his brother. It seemed like a match made in heaven, right? And I always say I am from Kentucky, and I got to clarify for this, the reputation of my state. They like me to tell you he wasn't my brother. I was dating his brother. So I want to differentiate that before you get any ideas, And that guy, he's a good guy. I saw him today, man. He wanted a family, and he was crazy about me. And but alcoholism. And we got married, and we played Led Zeppelin during the ceremony in the chapel. It was a great rock and roll wedding. And I got so drunk the night of the honeymoon, I passed out. That's what we do. About a year into that marriage, I was 25 years old, and he said, man, I can't do this, man. You got to do something about your drinking. This is crazy. The kids are scared of you. I'm scared of you. You drink all the time. Lights are getting shut off. The alcoholic insanity, that is a home with an active alcoholic in it. And that's called frothy emotional appeal. It says it seldom suffices, but by the time I was 25 years old, I knew something was wrong. And I was starting to connect the dots between alcohol and my life, right? I was starting to see that maybe alcohol was the problem. Maybe this was a situation where I needed to stop drinking, right? My dad had gotten sober when I was 18 years old. And so I called my dad. He was the only person I knew that had alcoholism and had stopped drinking, and his life had gotten better. So I called my father and I said, Daddy, I think I got what you got. And he invited me over to his house, and my dad 12-stepped me, textbook 12-stepped me. Because I was going over there to tell him about how the world had been treating me. I thought it was important that somebody finally listened, and he did. And he told me about him. And more importantly, he told me about you. My dad took me to my first AA meeting. I was 25 years old and I got sober. I was 25 years old. I got sober on fellowship. I didn't work the program. I didn't read the book. I read the steps off the wall. I went to a lot of meetings and I didn't drink, and it got better. It got better, right? The marriage got better. We had 2 more kids. I'm not, finances got better because I'm not drinking. The home's cleaner. It got better, but I didn't get better because I didn't do any work on me. I didn't do the steps. I didn't read the book. Back in that era, back in 95, you know, there were pockets around AA that, they would call you a big book thumper. And it was like, it was derogatory. Uh, it was based in fellowship and service. And these people were staying sober, and I was too, until I quit going to the fellowship, till I quit doing the service. See, it got better, right? And we got 2 more kids, and now I can't go to as many meetings, and I'm really busy being a mom, being a sober mom, because now I'm taking my kids to church and I'm volunteering at their school, coaching soccer, and I'm showing up. And I don't really have time for all the meetings I used to have time for. And I fade out of Alcoholics Anonymous because I don't understand my diagnosis. I don't understand my diagnosis. And it's not long without you that I start getting real irritable, restless, and discontent again. My family grew marijuana. It's a family thing we do. And I said, God made weed and I like God, so I'm going to smoke weed and I won't ever let it get bad like it did before. That was a phase I went through in my teens and early 20s, but I'm nearly 30 now, and I won't let it get that bad, right? Because I don't know my diagnosis, because I don't understand the insidious nature of the disease that I have. Right? I'm underestimating my opponent, and I'm giving myself power that I don't have because I'm powerless. And I start doing that, but here this thing happens, right? When I smoke weed, I get thirsty. And then I decide I can drink again. But it's not going to get bad, right? I love page 31 of our book. I love page 30 of our book because there I am, right? The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. To the gates of insanity or death. And I want to prove myself non-alcoholic. I want to prove myself a normal drinker. And so I start drinking again. And man, it's just a matter of time. It's a matter of time before it's worse than it ever was. And this time when he comes to me and says, I'm getting a divorce, I say, good. You guys have been a burden on me forever, right? I need to be free, And my whole attitude about the importance of that relationship or that marriage or my function as a mother. Alcoholism. I heard a speaker say one time, alcoholism will take motherhood from you. And it did. And I was okay with divorcing him, and I was okay with giving him joint custody. And I'm okay to go out and party and do what I want to do and drink and drink and drink and drink and drink. And I'm okay with not picking those kids up. And I told him I would. And that little girl that sat on the porch waiting for dad to show up, I'm doing that to my kids. I can't pay my bills and I can't hold a job. And so I end up homeless. I end up out on the streets. I lived in my car for a while. I love alcoholics. I heard a speaker in Nashville say one time, alcoholics are the only people that's like, oh, you live in your car. Can I stay with you a while? I lived in my car. Nobody asked to stay with me. I was crazy in there, And then they towed my car. That was a bad day, man. It's a bad day when you're sleeping in your car and you come back and it's gone, and you don't have the money to get it out of the impound lot, but you're going to get the money. But when you get the money, you need to spend it on booze. You can't spend it on the car. I said that. And those impound lots are a scam. They charge you by the day. Every day they want more money for your car to be there. So like the car's just gone, right? I'm not going to go get the car. I don't have means to go get the car. I'm begging change to get a drink. There's no way I can come up with the money to get that car out of the impound. And if I come up with that much money, man, I'm buying a lot of booze, not those dollar drinks, right? That's what my life is. And my family doesn't know where I am, and nobody's seen me, and I'm insane. I'm homeless. I don't know if you've ever seen a homeless woman, but we're way underweight. We're malnourished, and we talk to ourselves a little bit. We twitch when we walk. and I got to have a drink. I was 37 years old, and if I didn't have a drink by 10:30 in the morning, my hands would start trembling. That's DTs, right? That's the beginning of delirium tremors. I remember one time I went in a store, and it was early morning. I went in to get my $1 22-ounce natural ice. I bummed $1 that morning. I went in, and the guy that owns the store, he said, "That's $1.10." I said, "A what?" He said, "It's $1.10." I said, "I don't have the 10." He said, "Well, it's $1.10. The price is $1.10." I said, "I bought booze last night before I went to bed. That beer is $1." And he was like, "Well, the price went up." I'm like, "It's the same beer that was there last night." Like, I'm getting ready. Like, he called the police. Like, I'm getting that angry. And, I kicked here, and I grabbed the beer and I kicked over the chip stand as a diversion. I ran out of the store over 10 cents. But let me tell you, I didn't have 10 cents. I didn't know how I'd get 10 cents. And 10 cents meant going back out in that parking lot and asking somebody for some change. I needed that beer. Pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. See, when I read that book, I didn't have to ask what a lot of these things meant. I understood. I knew what those words meant. I knew what it meant to be at the jumping off point, to wish for the end. When I read Bill's story, it wasn't about a stockbroker in 1935. It was about a man who told me that the remorse and horror of the next morning were unforgettable. That he would find an all-night joint to supply what he needed and 2 bottles of gin and oblivion. Man, I get it, Bill. I get it, brother. I get it. I love when he says, like, nobody knew I wouldn't work again for many years. When I think about to the last time I had a job and when I became unemployable. And when that happened, I was going to get another job. I was going to. Who doesn't work, right? And then I realized I'm incapable. I'm incapable of that. Those are dark days, man. I wish I'd tell you. I'd like to tell you I visited that and got out quick, but I lived like that for 4 years. March 6, 2010, my dad picked me up off a street corner. And he drove me to a homeless shelter for women that had a treatment program. And he said, "Amy, go in there and see if those women can help you, because you're going to die, honey." Something happened that day. I had wanted to be sober. I'd come in and out of AA from 2007 to 2010, right? Just like I did in 95. I came to your meetings. Meeting makers make it, right? And you all would say things like, go to meetings and don't drink. And I was like, it's that second part I'm having trouble with. I can come to your meetings. I'm holding your hand. I'm drinking your coffee. I'm saying your prayers. But I can't get 24 hours. I can't get 2 days. I can't get 4 days. I can't put together a week. I'm in the grips of alcoholism. It has me. I don't have it. If I had any power, I'd pick a sobriety date. I am powerless over this stuff. I can't not drink. I don't know what to do. Treatment seemed wise. The book tells me that hospitalization for those that are particularly jittery, I had to be removed from the drink. And I'd gone to that same homeless shelter twice before and left, right? Body heals, the liar returns. I think I can do it on my own, I think that I can do it an easier, softer way. I don't want to go through this whole program at this homeless shelter, right? I just want to be sober. But I'm not willing to do any of the work it takes to get sober, right? I just want to be sober. It was so easy when I was 25, man. I came in, you guys smell good. You smell better than the people I was hanging out with. You had good coffee. You tell funny jokes. You're the funniest people I've ever met. Like, I love the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I didn't want to pay the price of admission. A price must be paid. The leveling of pride. I didn't want to get humble. I didn't want to work steps. I didn't want to read your book. I just wanted to be sober, like some magic wand. Like it had seemed like, and that's how it had seemed to me when I was younger. But here I am, you know, progressive and fatal. And here I am in the grips of alcoholism. And it's going to take more than a cup of coffee and a meeting. It's going to take a lot more. And so I finally surrendered on March 6, 2010. I heard a lady down in Florida say, something happens on our sobriety day, right? She said it's when grace and desperation collide. And I was willing to stay. I wrote myself a note, said, this is a good idea, because I knew the body would heal and the liar would return. I knew that what sobriety had seemed like a good idea until I changed my mind, right? And so I wrote myself this note, and I carried that note for 8 months. So anytime I thought about leaving that program or taking a drink or whatever, I would say, this is a good idea. Like, don't forget, this is still a good idea, you know, stick with it. And they put a book in my hand, and I got a sponsor, and I started reading that book, man. And I remember opening it up to there's a solution and just crying on the pages. There is a solution. I had the desperation of a drowning man. And I just started going at this thing, foot to pavement, foot to pavement, foot to pavement, foot to pavement. I didn't balk much. I mean, I might have balked, but I did it anyway, right? I had that gift of desperation. So I was willing to do whatever you said, in whatever order you said to do it, even if it didn't make sense. I just did it. And I worked the steps to the best of my ability. I had a spiritual experience on step 7 that shifted and changed my entire outlook on life and God and his universe. And then I got busy and I did 9-step, and I stay in 10, 11, and 12. I continue, practice, improve. I uncover, discover, discard. I do all the things. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. My growth, my change has been incredible. Listen, I was still fighting people at 5 years sober. I mean, fist fighting, like physically. Like, I'm still dangerously antisocial in sobriety. I still don't have little control of my emotional nature, right? I'm still bedeviled. I still have that rage. It didn't go away because I dropped a 5th step or I did a 7-step prayer. Like, my garden, the daily meditation, you know, my garden constantly needs weeding. And some of these character defects, I'm a bully. I like to bully and intimidate people. And when I'm scared, I get really big and loud so that, you know, when my instincts are affected. And I'm still using those character defects to defend myself. My friend Pearl calls them character defenses, right? Because I don't want to change who I am. I don't want to let go of the pride and ego. There's things I like, you know, in 6 and 7. There's some of these I like, and I want to hang on to, and I'm going to defend them, right? But it's causing me trouble in my life. It's causing separation between me and the new woman. It's causing separation between me and God. It's causing problems in my life. I got to start being rid of these things more and more and more. 5 years sober, I kicked in my neighbor's door and I threatened to kill everybody in the house. I meant that because I'm scary. And I called my sponsor. I said, when am I going to stop doing this, man? Wait, why do I act this way? And she said, Amy, when you're ready to work all the steps. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm 5 years sober. I sponsor women. I know this book inside and out, you know. What do you mean? And she was like, the second half of 11, sweetheart. And I was like, man, I was caught. She was right. I didn't meditate. I didn't know anything about meditation, you know. And she said, why don't you grab your 12 and 12 and read about step 11? And just like every other piece of literature that you know we have, I read it and said, how did they know? Like, all the excuses, all the reasons, all the things I was doing to avoid meditation, man, is right there in the 12 and 12. How did they know? You know, I said, I guess I got to do this. So I was forced into meditation because I knew that if my behaviors didn't change, if I didn't do something different, I was going to drink again. The same woman will drink again. I had to be a new woman, a new creation. And that wasn't something that happened in 2010. And then it just, you know, took care of itself. This is a daily reprieve. I have to continue to grow and change. I have to continue to weed the garden. I have to continue to look. So I started with the 3-minute guided meditation on YouTube, and I try to listen to it for 3 minutes, and I couldn't, right? Here's a little secret. Nobody's good at meditation. Your brain's job is to like produce thoughts. And so it does that. It does a very good job at its job. It's a brilliant thing that is, it does. So it's going to interrupt me a lot while I'm trying not to think. Don't think, don't think, don't think. Right. Uh, but I practice meditation. I'm not good at it, but I practice it, and I practice it in the morning and I practice it at night. And Bill Wilson wrote that one of the first benefits of meditation is emotional sobriety. And here's the deal. If I'm connected to this, if I sit quietly and try to attempt to meditate, to be centered and focused with the Great Spirit for any length of time, it connects me to you. And if I feel connected to you, I'm less likely to punch you in the face. I'm less likely to cuss you out. I'm less likely to be mean or judgmental or unkind because I feel connected to you. And then the 11-step prayer makes sense, to seek to understand rather than be understood. I can't do that. Even with just prayer, there's an action in step 11, right? And it's the meditation and it's the prayer. It's both parts. And so I've done that, and I'm changed, and I'm better for it. And I don't do it perfectly. My step 12 work used to be very aggressive. My home group said I 12 stomped women instead of 12 stepped them because I didn't have any compassion, love, or tolerance, and I'm like, you want to live or you want to die? Book tells me on to the next one, now I don't sugarcoat nothing. Your life's on the line. I was bringing all that hostility and that street and, tough girl gangster stuff. I brought that straight into Alcoholics Anonymous. I had to change sponsor, I was about 3 years sober because my first sponsor quit doing this deal, man, and I had to get a new sponsor. And one of the first things she asked me was like, why are you yelling at everyone? So they can hear the message. She was like, honey, the truth just stands there all by itself. It doesn't have to be yelled. And my 12-step work was aggressive, and it was like that. And it was foot to pavement, man. I was out running this. I just kept moving. I told you, foot to pavement, right? And so I thought, if I go to one more meeting, if I chair one more meeting, if I move one more chair, if I sponsor one more woman, if I give one more ride, then maybe I'll be safe. And this thing won't drag me back. Action and more action. Faith without works is dead. My sponsor said, when do you rest? When do you do a lot? I'm like, yeah, I can't rest on your laurels. I'd throw the book back at her. She'd say, honey, grace is not earned. It is given. And I realized that I had a fear-based recovery. I was so terrified. I was sufficiently horrified. I had been badly mangled. And so I was doing and doing and doing and doing and doing, but not as an act of service, because I was terrified of getting drunk again. I was terrified that I would mess up and I'd be struck drunk and find myself homeless and lost, and I would hurt those children again. So I would do and do and do and do. And then in meditation and learning to accept grace, I realized that I get to do, and I still do and do and do and do. Don't get me wrong. But my 12-step work isn't fear-based anymore. It's service-based. It's because I'm having a good time. And to watch the light come on and to watch women hold their heads up. You hear them laugh for the first time. What about this one? Rule 62, to hear them laugh at themselves for the first time, right? Because we got to be careful with the newcomer. I think everything's funny to me, and they're real sensitive, you got to wait till they get sober enough to take the joke, And I love it. I love it when they can laugh at themselves and we can laugh at each other and we laugh. And I love it when they get jobs and get degrees and they start chairing meetings and they smile and they look the world in the eye. And I get to watch that, man. I get to watch that it says we will pick up our mats and walk again. The age of miracles is still with us. I'm in awe of that. I think that's the coolest thing in the world, man. And I don't want to miss it. I said in the beginning, we sit in the greatest show on earth, but I got to be here to see the show. And I love to be a part of it. I have a relationship with all my children today. They love me. They're proud of me. I'm their first phone call, right? If it's good, hey mom, you won't believe what happened. If it's bad, hey mom, I'm always the first call. Mom, I need money. And that's okay. I get to be the mom, and I get to be a grandma today. I got grandkids, and they've never seen Grandma Amy drink. They know that Grandma Amy does what she says she's going to do, and she's going to show up, and they know I'm going to be kind, I'm going to be loving, and it's going to be fun. I've got a granddaughter who's 14. I got sober right before she turned a year old, and I've got to grow up with that kid. And she was saying, everybody in the family, she's got a little thing with them, like she cooks out with her papa, and her and her mom, whatever they do. And I said, what do me and you do? She said, well, you take me anywhere I need to be. I said, yeah, I'm a good taxi driver. And she said, and I can tell you anything. I said, yeah, you can tell me anything, sweet girl. She trusts me. She trusts that I respect her and I'll keep her secret. I found out years later, things happened to my kids that they didn't tell me because they feared what I would do because of that rage and that wrath and that tough girl thing, right? And I thought my kids knew I'd defend them and I would fight for them, but sometimes kids just want you to listen to them. Sometimes kids don't want their 5th grade English teacher assassinated, right? They don't want you to punch their friend in the mouth, Sometimes kids just, but that was my reputation, and I didn't realize how these things that I was using blocked people from me. There were women in AA that needed help and a sponsor, but they were intimidated by me. They were scared of me. I wasn't able to deliver the information to them or be useful to them because I wasn't well. And it's my responsibility to be fit for maximum service. So that's 10, 11, and 12 after I've completed 1 through 9. That's continual growth. It doesn't stop. My dad was 20 years sober when I went through treatment. And I remember calling him one day from the payphone. We used to have payphones. Right? And I called him from the payphone. I'm like, hey, Dad, what are you doing? He said, oh, I'm just reading Dr. Bob's Nightmare. And I said, you haven't read that yet? Because, he's 20 years sober. I've only been sober 5 weeks. I've already read it. I thought I was further along than him. He was like, honey, I keep reading this book. We don't read it once and put it down. I didn't know, but I've had these beautiful examples of men and women in long-term recovery with years are long-timers who are still showing up at meetings, who are still shaking hands, who are still taking women and men through the steps. My dad never left the firing line. I love that. I need you. I need to know I can stay sober 30 years because life's going to show up. My dad died. Parents are going to die. Divorces happen. Kids, jobs, life shows up. The certain trials and tribulations. It doesn't say if they show up. They're certain. And I need you to come to the meeting and tell me how you did that. I need to know how you stay sober when it hurts real bad. And how do you stay sober when you're scared to death? And how do you stay sober when things don't go your way? And I need to know what that looks like. And so I just thank you for being here when I got here and keeping the doors open and continuing to show up so a little twitchy street drunk like me can keep following along, I'm trying to keep up. I got to know what to do. And I love AA and I love all its members and I love this beautiful life we get to live. That's all. Thank you guys.